Welcome back. Now get comfortable. It's time to drift off.
The Night Shift That Haunts Me. A real-life horror story in the ER. Story related. Okay, so buckle up because this isn't your average crazy night at work post. This was next level, straight out of a horror movie, but real. I still think about it sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. It was around 2 a.m., classic dead hour chaos. We'd already had our share of nonsense. Some guy freaking out over a mosquito bite convinced it was dengue. Then the ambulance rolls in with a 50-something-year-old woman, morbidly obese. It's not like a bit overweight. I'm talking immobilized by her body, skin folding onto itself kind of situation. Her husband, this guy looked like he hadn't seen a doctor since '93, keeps insisting she walks fine. She just slipped. Sir, with all due respect, no way in hell this woman was walking. She was being wheeled in on a stretcher, barely responsive, covered in sweat and wrapped in what looked like every towel and sheet they had at home. Then the smell hit us. Turns out, their idea of cleaning her was putting hot, wet towels on her body. That's it. No soap, no rinsing, just warm mildew towels. And then the daughter shows up. 22 years old, same build, same energy. My mom's fine, she just needs to rest. We want to take her to our usual hospital in a taxi. A taxi. You couldn't even fit her in a normal cab. And I'm not even body shaming. This was a full-on medical crisis. The woman was septic and barely conscious. Despite the daughter's protests, we kept her for stabilization and prepped her for transfer to a bigger hospital. But before that, we had to clean her. It took 4 of us. When we undid the sheets, the smell got worse. Her skin was in folds on folds, and in between them, literal fungus, like mushrooms. We're talking colonies, not just irritation or yeast. One of the nurses gagged and had to step out. I've seen some nasty wounds, but this was on another level. We used gauze soaked in betadine, trying to get under the folds gently. That's when she started screaming. Not normal patient distress. I mean demonic guttural howls like the Exorcist level. She cursed, she cried, she twisted her head and yelled, "Don't touch me," in this deep voice that did not feel like it came from a human. I've never been so creeped out at work in my life. Sadly, after being transferred and a couple of days in ICU, she passed away from septic shock. It hit hard, because it didn't have to get this bad. She had family, but they were deep in denial. Her daughter kept saying she was fine yesterday, even though the lab said otherwise. And honestly, the daughter looked like she was heading down the exact same path. Still think about that night sometimes. It was sad, grotesque, and terrifying all at once. We weren't just fighting bacteria. We were fighting years of neglect, denial, and a healthcare system that lets things get this bad. Stay healthy, drink your water, and please, bathe properly. One time I went out on a call of a suspicious person at a house near where I was at. When I get there, the guy tells me that someone knocked on his door, and when he went to see who it was, there was a woman standing in his driveway with some sort of child-sized doll with horns, and it looked like all bloody and cut up. So he asked the woman, who was looking away from him, what she wanted. She turned around and told him it needs food, then started screaming at the top of her lungs and ran at him. So like a normal human being, he slammed the door in her face and called the cops. I get there and there are well-defined claw marks on his door. There's also a good bit of blood, I suppose, from her fingers. So I call it out and start the search on foot. I also had 2 or 3 units driving around the area to see if they can't find this chick. So I'm about a block away, and we get another call that the woman is back at the guy's house, but in the backyard. So I run about a block back to the guy's house and bust into his backyard. The lights are out, so I have my flashlight out, and I'm looking around. I see the chick huddled in the corner next to a evil-looking doll thing, and I ask her if she's okay. She doesn't say anything. About this time, one of my mobile units came back to the house and parked his unit where the headlights were shining on her so we could see how scary this chick looked. She had long black hair, her clothes were rags. She had no shoes, clearly homeless, and she kept whispering things to the doll. So my buddy and I approached and tried talking to her, and she just kept whispering to the doll. Couldn't understand what the hell she was saying, so we decided to drag her out of there. The second we put hands on this chick, she went berserk. Punching, kicking, slapping, all kinds of shit. So we're fighting with her, trying to get her on the ground, and she's not going down. This chick was strong as hell. Well, in the fight, she somehow got away from us and was sitting in a crouched position with her head tilted to the side and making the creepiest growl, snarling sound I've ever heard. Then she screams at the top of her lungs and charged at us. So my buddy straight jabbed her in the face and knocked her clean out. He cuffed her and hauled her off to the hospital where she tested positive for PCP and various opiates. She was charged with battery of a peace officer, resisting arrest, and trespassing. Later she was institutionalized for some sort of mental disorder. Not sure quite what it was. My department didn't have anything more to do with her after her booking into the jail. I was a new nurse at our hospital, and only been working there a couple of months. I had brought a patient of mine up to day surgery from the EI for an endoscopy, and they called back down and asked me to bring her. Family up because she only spoke Italian and not enough English, and they needed someone to consent for the procedure. After dropping them off, I walked past the waiting room to head back down the hall to the elevators. I took the back way to get to the ER, and the hallways are all deserted. It used to be the pediatric wing of the hospital. But that is all shut down for years, and the rooms are just empty and full of broken equipment and beds and crap. As I reached the old nurses' station at the T-junction between the pediatric hallway in the hallway that goes to the elevators, I saw a little girl standing across from the nurses' station further down the hall. She had big pigtails, was wearing a brown dress, white shoes, holding a teddy bear. I thought perhaps she was a family member who had walked away from the day surgery waiting room. I was concerned that she would go into one of the rooms and get hurt or lost. So I said, "Hey little girl, what are you doing? You don't need to be over there. You're going to get hurt." And I walked around the nursing station to go grab her hand and bring her back. I shit you not. She vanished as I got about 15 feet away from her dot. Every hair on my body stood up straight and I turned, and ran like a bat out of hell down to the elevator. I pounded that button for what seemed like an eternity until the elevator got to the floor. As I got back to I walked up to the nurse's desk, white as a sheet, and one of the older nurses looked at me and said, "Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?" I remember babbling like an idiot as I tried to tell them what happened. After listening to me for a moment or two, the nurse said, "Oh, you saw the little girl ghost. She's been around here for years." And I remember saying, "Well, thanks for telling me about it before this." Apparently the ghost has even been seen down in the ducking in and out of patient rooms and peeking around curtains. My wife worked up on the 7th floor and she said that one time on nights a whole row of patient rooms started yelling about a little girl that was running around in the rooms. I guess she gets around. Night nurses get phantom call from empty room with no phone. I work as a transporter in a hospital. About 2 years ago, we moved from the old city hospital into a new state-of-the-art facility. The old hospital was built in the 1930s and was showing its age, and at night was just plain creepy. Each floor had an east and west wing. The east wing of the 4th floor was the first wing to be shut down about 2 weeks before the move. One night at around 9:30, I'm up on the floor to get a patient from the west wing. I see a small group of nurses and aides who all used to work on the wing. They looked visibly shaken. I walked over to see if everything was okay. They told me that they had decided to walk through their old wing for nostalgia's sake. When they were over there, the phone at the nurses' station started ringing. The computers and phones had not yet been moved. Not sure what to do, one of the nurses reached over the counter and answered the phone. The nurse told me there was a woman's voice on the other end, and that she sounded confused. This is the conversation as best I can remember it. "This is underscore. How can I help you?" asked the nurse. "Hello? Who is this?" "This is underscore. I'm a nurse. Is there anything I can help you with?" "Where am I?" "This is hospital name. Are you patient here?" "Oh, okay." Then the line went dead. That's when the nurse finally looked at the screen on the phone to see where the call was coming from. The phone gave the room number directly next to the nurse's station. The rooms by this point had all been cleared out and the phones removed. They could see directly into the room and see that there was nobody in there. That's when they bolted toward the west wing where I was getting off the elevator. I avoided that wing for the rest of my time there. I used to work in an old Catholic hospital. Where the labor and delivery unit is located now, it used to be the convent for the nuns that worked at this hospital. One of the nuns died of natural causes years ago. This nun loved and raised numerous varieties of roses. Ever since the OB department was moved to this area, anytime a mother or baby is having difficulties, you can smell the scent of roses throughout the whole unit. The OB nurses know to be prepared when they start smelling the scent of roses. If a mother or baby dies, the room suddenly fills with rose petals. It is one of the creepiest, but also loving things that happens. I was standing in a room one night when the baby died. The room filled with white and pink rose petals. The nurses and family was creeped out. I worked at another hospital where you would see a nurse in the old white dress and cap walk down the hallway and smile at you. Then she would walk into a patient's room and apply wrist restraints. All the nurses knew her. It was just Mildred who died 60 years ago. You just had to follow her so you can take the wrist restraints off. J. First patient to die. The very small step-down unit I worked in was having nighttime staffing issues. I agreed to rotate to nights to help them out. It was a 4-bed, newly renovated unit. It was around 3 a.m., and I was watching the monitors, listening to the patients snore. The pencil drawer slid open. I didn't think much of it since the hospital was on a very busy avenue, and I thought it was caused by the vibrations from the traffic on the busy road below. After sliding the drawer back several times, I decided if the drawer felt it needed to be open, so be it. Several minutes later, I heard a noise in the room. The patient's bathroom door opening, and the sound of someone pushing and pull. Since I did not have clear view of the bathroom, I just thought one of the staff members from the main floor had dashed in to wash their hands. I looked up from my monitor viewing to see a patient we recently had in the unit. It was Mrs. G, an older woman who came in with atypical chest pain, became septic due to a gallbladder issue. She evidently had expired in the unit, although the hospital itself had been on this site for years. The unit was newly renovated, right down to tearing down walls and putting up new ones. I heard the patient's bathroom door open, and again I heard the rattling of the four-pole and shuffling feet. I looked up and saw Mrs. G standing there in the middle of the floor, one hand pushing the four-pole, the other hand on top of the pump on the pole. She stopped walking, turned and waved, nodded her head, said everything was going to be okay, took a few steps, and disappeared. It was quite a sight to see. Shortly after that vision, one of the nurses from the floor came in to see if I needed anything. I told her no, I was okay, and asked her if she had ever seen a ghost in the hospital. She looked at me, gasped and asked, "No, why?" And I explained to her what had just happened. She said she would never step foot in that room again. Mrs. G was the first patient to die in that unit. She was well liked by all the staff, and my feeling was that she was watching over us. The day shift came in, and I told them my story. They weren't surprised. Through the years working at various hospitals, worked as a nurse extern my senior year in nursing school, and heard older nurses telling their stories about ghosts. I thought they were just burnt out. Ha! Yes, there are ghosts in care facilities. They are not seen, their presence is felt. They leave an energy behind.